What is a dead giveaway that someone is an only child? I told my BF to close his eyes and open his mouth. I was surprising him with candy, and he just did it with no suspicion at all. People with siblings can't trust like that. I'm an only child. One huge difference I see time and time again with those who have siblings: they had much more exposure to a longer time span of media/music/games growing up. My idea of nostalgia consists of my specific timeline of media growing up, but those with siblings were able to watch TV shows their older brother watched, or knows about that game their little sister played. I heard once only children are less likely to announce where they are going when they leave a room. Right away I realized I do that, but my partner who grew up with two sisters tells me where he's about to go when he moves, even if it's to the bathroom. My BF is an only child, and it was his confusion at how I can be mad at my sister, who is also my roommate, 1 minute and turn around and get ice cream or go see a movie together. He grew up with a bunch of cousins around his age, but it was the quick turnaround of "I'm so mad at you" to "I wanna hang out, let's do something." Thinking friendship is like having siblings. It's not. I would never smash a toy on my friend's head and expect them to speak to me after. From personal experience, food habits. Like buying snacks to store at home and fully expecting them to not have been touched when you're gone, or eating slower at the dinner table because you're not fighting over the good food. As a teen, on the rare occasion my dad would steal a snack I got for myself, I'd freak out, whereas my friends with siblings just resigned themselves to the fate of snacks inevitably disappearing. My mom eats super fast at meals, and she attributes it largely to growing up with siblings. No tales of sibling violence. I'm the only child in my family. My mom said she learns from her mistakes. Pretty good at keeping ourselves entertained or doing things alone/being independent. I can't tell for adults, but when it's one of my kids' friends, the kid who ends up trying to hang out with the adults and gets overwhelmed by being in a group of kids has been an only child 100% of the time in my experience. From my own experience, not being as prone to loneliness. The only time I really feel lonely is when I'm around people I'd rather not be with. I am an only child. I've noticed I tend to make a lot of life choices on my own and don't seek out a lot of advice or ask for help when I could definitely use it. In fact, I've been pretty deep in tough situations when I finally have the realization that there are people and resources I can utilize. It's not so much I'm worried about asking for help, more like it doesn't even register in my brain that there is help outside of myself. On a more positive note from personal experience, being secure with doing things alone. Edit, it's wild getting so many responses. This conversation really resonates with people. It's a fantastic study in how people really can't be put into nice little boxes. Everyone responds differently to life. Smiley face. They are very deliberate in their chosen relationships, e.g. friendships, partners, and are usually extremely independent, at least in my experience. Interesting read as an only child. Maybe myself and others who I know are only children were raised differently, but I don't really see the lack of social skills and being unable to share things. From talking to others, people have noted I am pretty comfortable being alone or being in silence, which I thought was interesting. Smiley face. What is the most creative insult you've ever heard? It could be that the purpose of your life is to serve as a warning to others. My wife says that I have the fashion sense of a colorblind pimp. Not saying she's wrong, though. I heard this one at work: having Bob on your team is like having two good workers quit. Was golfing and stopped to pee on a tree, didn't realize I was facing the direction of oncoming cart path, and this guy yells out while driving by. Looks like a penis, only smaller. A former coworker was getting some shit from one of our customers. After the customer said something particularly bad, my coworker looked him square in the face and said comments like, "That is probably why you're missing teeth." About 10 years ago a guy drove past me and yelled out the window, "Your mustache doesn't suit you." I'm still not over it. I did not attend his funeral, but I sent a nice letter saying I approved of it. Mark Twain. When I was in high school there was a student that was upset about the grade he received on a project. He asked the teacher why he got an F and the teacher replied, "Because we don't give out GS." Edit. Wow. Thanks for the gold, stranger. I haven't looked at my phone all day because work was super busy. The teacher in question was truly a great person and was successful with dealing with at-risk students. The student neglected the project and it was evident. Mr. B did allow the student to continue working on the project to improve his grade. He made it clear that if you want to succeed you have to work for it. Also, he rode a Harley-Davidson to school almost every day. First time I went to dinner at my BF's parents' house, he warned me his brother has the modesty and humility of a newly moneyed rapper. He might try to suck his own cock during dinner. There was a dude who went to be a prep cook in the restaurant I work at. Him and a waitress get into an argument, and he says your dildo must turn flaccid when you use it. He was fired the next day, and me and a cook were yelled at by our boss for laughing. One of my sister's teachers would compliment someone's bovine grace if she was certain they would miss the insult. I always liked that one. You mom had to think about other babies while breastfeeding you. I read this comment on a post where a guy explained how amazing he felt after the first time that a girl asked him out. The first response: cool man. What breed was her guide dog? You think in low power mode. Wisdom has been chasing you, but you've always been faster. I can only explain it to you, I can't understand it for you. What's the fastest way you've ever seen a new coworker get fired? 6 hours. Call center job. She showed up to orientation on day 1 about an hour late. Hey, stuff happens. Then we go on a 15 minutes break. She goes out to take a phone call, comes back in after about 45 minutes. We go to lunch, it's 30 minutes. She comes back over an hour later. We go on afternoon break. When the 15 minutes break is up, one of the trainers gets up and steps out in the hall and closes the door behind him. We hear her arrive and argue with him about 20 minutes after that. He comes back in and gets the stuff she left at her desk, and we never see her again. First day, her grandmother died. Understandable. Second day, her car broke down. Bad luck. Third day, she had no electricity and couldn't blow dry her hair. She was told not to bother coming in at all. Worked for startups the past couple of years before I recently took a new gig, but we had to hire about 100 people in the span of 2 weeks, which I told my boss was a bad idea, but the CEO insisted. Hired a young lady. She had a spotty resume but was very cheerful and friendly in the interview, and my boss's instructions were if they are nice and friendly, pass them on to me. We oversaw the customer service relations for this company. On her first day she came in 15 minutes late, got into an argument with a customer on her first training call and took the mic and farted into it as loud as I've ever heard a human being fart. We paid her for the full day. Best hire ever. In high school I worked at a clothing store as a cashier. Guy next to me has his sister come through with a huge pile of merchandise. He scans one item that was on clearance for like $2 over and over again for everything she had, which was likely hundreds of dollars. Didn't realize the manager was standing right behind him. Go clock out and give me your name tag, you're gone. He didn't argue or anything, just put his head down and walked off. The manager jumps on the register to clear the transaction out and the sister takes out her card. This is gonna be a credit. Manager says not for $2, it's not, get out of here. The sister actually tried to complete the purchase like nothing had happened, lol. He didn't get fired, he quit. But this dude was a first day hire as a bagger at a grocery store. Some dude blew up the entire bathroom with diarrhea. Walls, doors, sink, mirror, everywhere. They asked new dude to go clean it. He clocked out and never came back. He's a hero. A guy at my work was caught playing World of Warcraft for hours each day. Boss called him in and told him that was wholly unacceptable and he had to stop immediately or he'd be canned. Less than an hour later, IT calls the same boss and says the guy is back in his office playing again. He was let go that day. I used to work night audit / front desk at a motel adjacent to major highways. It was a super chill job, I loved my boss, and it was cool by me. But God, trying to hire and train someone to take over my hours, once for maternity leave, and then when I was moving away, was a nightmare. One lady claimed to be computer literate, and then tried to use the mouse to physically touch the correct spot on the monitor when I asked her to click on a field. Another got extremely confused when I mentioned that sleeping with a guest was completely out of bounds. A guy got arrested, and fired of course, for selling drugs to someone out the night window. It was just an absolute shit show. Before I moved, I gave my boss a 2-month notice, because I knew hiring and training was gonna be a nightmare. About a week before my final shift, we finally got someone in place. She was more than a bit strange and could certainly have used a spot of mental health care, but hey, I can't throw stones. She showed up, grasped the basics of the job, etc. About a week after I left, I learned that she had quit because she didn't realize that night audit was a purely overnight job. Idk. Day 1, delivering pizzas. I was the trainer. Dude wasn't familiar with the town at all, this was before GPS was a thing. Second delivery, he gets in the car, and proceeds to floor it in the parking lot, showing off all 80 horsepower for the 30 feet before slamming on the brakes to turn onto the main street, nearly hitting a customer and her young child. I say whoa, slow down in the parking lot, you almost hit that kid. Fuck was his response. That was his last delivery, lasted all of about 90 minutes. Worked in a sales call center about 10 years ago, real brain-dead work. New guy starts on a Monday morning, after he gets trained up on the basics, which takes about an hour, he gets assigned a desk and sets off to work. 30 minutes later, it looks like little puffs of steam are rising up from his computer monitor. Turns out he was vaping on one of those disposable e-cigarettes, the kind that sort of tried to look like real cigarettes. He gets told by the boss that we can't vape indoors, and if he wants to, he'll have to go outside to do it on a break. About 30 minutes later again, the same thing happens. He gets caught again, and is told in no uncertain terms that if he wants to keep his job, he'll stop vaping at his desk. An hour later, he gets caught hiding under his desk vaping, and is promptly fired, all before lunchtime. Dude could have just gone outside. When I was in college working at Walmart, cashier, I trained a girl on the register one evening. Maybe a week later, she comes through my lane buying groceries. I ask her how she's been, since I haven't seen her since the day after I trained her, and she tells me, unprompted, she's waiting on her court date. One of her friends went through her checkout lane, but she only actually scanned about a third of the items. About $1,500 of merchandise went out the door free of charge. My response out loud was, oh. My response in my head was, did you seriously not see the camera mounted above every single register? I was working as a stable boy, and I was showing the new girl around the stables. As I introduced her to the horses, she was very apprehensive to come near them, refusing to even step into the stall. She signed on to help care for the horses. Later that day, she admitted that the horses terrified her, so the boss let her go. He helped the shift leader, a friend of his, steal the ATM from the lobby. He used his own pickup truck. Day 1 shot up right outside the building. Clocked in, went to work, was found an hour later slumped over a table slowly munching on stolen muffins like an elderly dog. Clarification. Shot up, as in they injected drugs with a needle. A coworker sent an email to a female team member that he had a dream the night before that they had gotten married and he impregnated her. She sat across from me and I literally saw her face as she read the email. A strange look came across her face, then she walked into the manager's office. She left the office and he got called in and less than a minute later was packing his things. I believe from start to finish it took less than 5 minutes for him to send the email and get fired. How about getting fired before you start working? Our boss hired a new person, as a contractor, and he was available to work immediately, so he was scheduled to start work the day after his interview. Next morning my boss turns up, very annoyed, and shows me his phone. The new hire had sent several rambling and confused SMSEs that could be summarized as had a few drinks last night, won't be able to come into work today, you know how it is. My boss told him the contract was cancelled.